Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. I'm standing today in front of my barn, which I use kind of as a machine shed. The folks that lived here before us built this building, and it's a horse barn is what it is. It's got nice stalls inside it, and my wife and one daughter are kind of into horses, and it's been used occasionally for horses to be inside, but mostly it gets used as a Mike machine shed, and it's got too much in it to be a good machine shed. It needs those stalls out, but we're not going to do that. So the topic today relates to this. What do I need to store inside and what can go outside? My long-term goal, I've got enough farmer in me that I want all of my stuff inside. I want a downsized house and a machine shed that can be seen from the space shuttle. And my wife is on board with it. So that actually could happen someday, probably won't. But I would like to keep all of my machinery inside, just because it keeps better that way, doesn't get rusty. And I got a email today from one of my viewers that's asking about what to kind of keep outside and how to store it. And I just want to read through the question. And I'm going to tell you on this video today, some of my videos I actually put out there as kind of a forum. I want to have kind of a forum today where you that have more experience than I have maybe in where to store stuff and what works and what doesn't, you can put in the comments down below kind of what your thoughts are, and that'll help all of us out. But anyway, let's get to the question. And the question comes from Robert. And Robert says, I bought a used 6-foot disc and am storing it in a lean-to shed. I notice that the blades are rusting. My question is there a way to remove the rust from the blades? I heard that once you start using it that the rust will come off the blades. Do not know if that is true. Will the rust affect the disc blades? I see a lot of compact machinery that is sitting out in the elements. I have a 2-row plow, a cultipacker, and a brush hog. Is it okay to leave them out in the elements? Would you suggest covering them up with a tarp or not? Okay, first off, Robert's asking here about tillage stuff. And I'll be the first to admit, I don't know much about tillage. Here in the Missouri Ozarks, we have huge rocks right below the surface. And I've done a little bit of tillage in my life, but not a lot. So I'm going to give you an opinion here, and then again, I'd like you to put in the forum below, in the comments below, what you think, because I'd like to know what you think. But my experience with what little tillage equipment I've used, we bought a disc, I want to say in the 70s. I grew up on an apple orchard, and we would disc up the grass in the orchard to try to keep it controlled, and that didn't work too well. But I've spent a lot of days driving back and forth down the peach rows and apple rows on a disc, and that thing's never spent a day in its life inside. And my experience is, Robert, what you said is right. Once you hook that thing up and get it out in the soil and get it going, just the friction of the disc blades running around the soil will kind of shine it up a little bit, and when you're done, all those blades will be fairly shiny. Now, if you're really wanting to take care of the disc, when I got done with it, if you set it in the ground, it tends to sink in a little bit, and that's going to cause rust to form. If you can set it on like a pallet or some timbers and keep it off the ground, I think that's going to work better. And if you want to take it to the next level, if you would take some grease and rub over those disc blades and make sure all the bearings are greased. Grease prevents rust, so you could do that, but why? You're going to use it again. Now, a plow is a little different. I think you want to keep the plow, the bottoms of the plow smooth. You don't want any rust build up there, surface rust, because I think that's going to affect how it turns the soil over. So I definitely would put grease on your plow. On your disc, I don't think it really matters that much. Now, that's my opinion. Again, you guys that have had a little bit more experience with tillage equipment, put your thoughts down below. Now, you also asked about a brush hog, rotary cutter. Now, I got this idea from one or two viewers, and I think this is great wisdom. If you're storing a brush hog outside, take the PTO shaft off. Usually just one bolt holds it in. Sometimes you just have to push it in, kind of like hooking up the other end to the tractor. You just have a push button that releases the ball bearings and comes right off. That's the way mine is. Put that thing inside over the winter. and I would shoot some WD-40 down between the two pieces that go together just to make sure that you know, stays lubricated over the winter, and then put it in the garage, and then that part's done. Now if it were me, I'd put a bucket over the gearbox. I don't know if that does any good. It makes me feel better. And then put a rock on the bucket to keep it from blowing off. Now, I've seen people that will wrap like a gearbox up with plastic, like a plastic bag. I think that actually makes moisture form inside, and that's not good. I have a horse. Okay. My opinion is if you put a plastic bag over a gearbox, especially in a humid area like we are in the Missouri Ozarks, we have a lot of humidity. You put a plastic bag and seal that all up, that's going to make moisture come from the air. It's going to attract moisture from the air, and that's going to make it go down quicker. And I think the same thing kind of happens. I've known people that have had classic cars that they stored outside, and they'll put a tarp over it and then tie it down so it's pretty tight, and I think sometimes that encourages rust more than it does prevents it. So if you'll put in the comments below if you've had experiences, tell us your experience so we'll all know. Rotary cutters tend to draw moisture from the air anyway. When I checked my rotary cutter this year, we had a wet spring and the oil was milky, and that's pretty normal. It doesn't take much water to condense inside that gearbox, and pretty soon that oil is milky. And I didn't change it, probably will next year, but I don't think a little water in the oil is going to hurt. Now if you get a lot of it in there, it could freeze and cause problems, and I should drain it, and I will eventually, but that's pretty normal in a humid area to find milky oil in your brush hog gearbox. Now the last thing I want to talk about is, and I get a lot of questions about this, about storing a tractor outside. That is something that I don't do. The tractor is the most expensive thing I have, so it's going to go in the barn, and so I've always kept my tractors inside. If I had to store them outside, I think I would probably not put a tarp on top of them. I would probably put them back in the woods where they get a little bit of shade, so they're not just in the sun all the time, because most tractors are designed to stay outside. They have paint that's designed for outdoor use, and they'll stay pretty bright for a long period of time, but eventually your paint starts to fade, and certain colors are worse than others. So I don't think I want to put a cover or a tarp over a tractor. Now I had a kind of a mentor in this business, and he always put a tarp over his. So I'd be curious to know what the rest of you think about covering a tractor or a rotary cutter with a tarp if it's kept outside. The best thing to do is build a big machine shed, keep all that stuff inside. That's what my dad always taught me. He had a little building for everything, and if you go around most farmers, they've got their stuff inside. Now, to finally answer Robert's question on a disc, we bought that disc that we had on the farm in like 1972 or 3, and I put a lot of years on it. It sat down on the farm, and then a year or two ago I sold it because we didn't use it anymore, and I did a video about how to load a disc on a trailer, and that thing was still in pretty good shape, and I'm sure whoever used it, they're just making wildlife plots out of it. They've cleaned up the rust off of it, and generally disc blades don't rust out. They don't get so bad that they don't work over time. Now they'll get smaller as time goes on because they're wearing out the edges, but that hardened steel on a disc blade will not rust through and make it not usable anymore. So I think you're fine leaving your tillage tools out. If you want to put them on something to keep them off the ground from going in the soil, that's better. And if you want to put grease on the wear parts, that's better yet. But the best thing is to keep them inside if you can. Appreciate you watching my videos. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd be honored. Click the mic face icon and check the bell so you're notified when I post future videos. Here's a link to the Tractor Fun Store on my website, where I offer unique items of interest to the tractor enthusiast, which helps support my channel. Here's another video you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.